Speaker and chairperson are requested to come on the dais, please. Chairperson and speaker are requested to come on dais, please. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, dignitaries, and esteemed participants. I am Vikas Kumar, Under Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and on behalf of Ministry, I am privileged and honored to welcome you all to 18th Urban Mobility India Conference-cum-Exhibition 2025. The technical session is on mobility option in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. The session is being graciously chaired by Mr. Hideki Iwasaki, Director General, Sector Department 1 Transport ADB. He is a nation of Japan and holds a master degree in civil engineering from Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University, USA, and master degree and bachelor degree in urban engineering from the University of Tokyo, Japan. He has more than 34 years of professional work experience, including more than 22 years in ADB. Guiding the discussion as moderator is Mr. Sarat Saxena, Principal Transport Specialist, Sector Department 1 Transport ADB. Sri Saxena sir holds a master degree of science and PhD in transport study and geography from University of Oxford, UK. He started his career with the government in the prestigious Indian Railway Services and has over 28 years of professional experience in railways and international development. To begin the session, now I am honored to request moderator Sri Saxena sir to graciously guide the proceeding of the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm sure all of you attended the inaugural session, a very exciting session where we were truly inspired by the tremendous work that is happening in the space of urban mobility in our country. This particular technical session is focusing on Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. Now, to prepare for this session, the first thing I did, I think most of us do, is Googled Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. And I got so many links from Magic Bricks, 99 acres. And I quickly realized that the real reason behind so much housing is the demand by people to move to these kinds of cities. That is where the true growth of India is going to happen. The urbanization that we are all expecting and the numbers that are being touted around are going to happen in these Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. Now, I'm not going to be talking about Tier 2, Tier 3, but let's just talk about small and medium cities. And to be more specific, I think we have a very esteemed panel which represents cities like Nagpur, Bhopal, Indore, Kochi, Surat, and of course the UP cities of Agra, Kanpur, and Lucknow. And so that gives you a very good idea of the kinds of cities that we're going to be talking about and discussing to explore the mobility options. Now, I'll do a very quick round of introduction, although our esteemed panelists really need no introduction. But over there is Dr. Klaus Liebig from KfW. He's the head of the Climate Finance and Mobility in South Asia. And KfW, as you all know, has been doing tremendous work in a number of Indian cities and are extremely active. On my right is Mr. Behra, again needing no introduction. He's spearheading Kochi Metro and doing some amazing stuff which we'll hear about. Fellow colleague from the Indian Railways, Mr. Sushil Kumar, is the Managing Director of UP Metro Rail Corporation. Then we have Mr. S.K. Chaitanya. He is the Managing Director of MP Metro Rail Corporation. Also, as you know, MP Metro is working in Bhopal and Indore and developing the systems. Then on his right is Ms. Vasumana Pant, the Additional Commissioner from Nagpur. And Nagpur, of course, has a major mass transit system that is evolving and moving into its phase 2. And last but certainly not the least, we have Dr. Himani Jain. She's a research fellow from the Council of Energy, Environment and Water. So to kick things off, I'll first request our chairperson, Mr. Iwasaki-san, to share his thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you, Sharad. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here and joining this session. And on behalf of ADB, I would first like to express our sincere appreciation for the good collaboration we have been enjoying with many institutions in the country which deal with transport in general and urban transport challenges. And we work with many of the cities represented here. So I'm very happy to be here. And in the morning, we had the inaugural session where we heard a lot about India's achievement and also Delhi, Haryana region's achievement in introducing high-density modes of transport, metro systems. And in the afternoon, the first section will be talking about small and medium-sized cities. So I think the question is how we extend or replicate the models that worked very well in mega cities to these small and medium-sized cities. And an obvious question is, does the metro solution work well in these cities? Of course, India has many big cities, although they are termed small to medium-sized in country, but elsewhere they are big cities. And metro systems may work, but we cannot solely rely on metro systems to solve the urban mobility issues. And ADB is also fully aware of this challenge, and we have tried to provide assistance in many cities in India as well as in other parts of Asia and the Pacific. My colleague Sharad prepared some notes highlighting some of the examples, but I'm not going to those details. But we have some examples in Southeast Asia, Vientiane, which has less than 1 million population, and in the Philippines, in Davao, it's a southern city which has about 2 million population. And in these cities, we help them introduce bus systems. And it took a while for us, especially to work in places like Vientiane, to initiate the process because there's no institution to first accommodate this kind of a system. And also, people are not really ready to embrace this kind of system. Still, basically, owning your motorbikes, owning your vehicles, and drive on your own is really the expression of their economic achievement. So changing people's mindset, behavior is also a challenge. Anyway, if you're interested, we could also go into those details, but this session is to talk about India's cases and also explore options. So I will stop here, but I'm very happy that the first technical session is talking about small and medium-sized cities. Back to you.
No, thank you very much, Iwasaki-san. And yes, I think the international examples are certainly of great interest, and we'll, of course, come back to those. Let's just now start with a bit of a deep dive into the Indian cities and what's happening and what should be happening and what we would like to see happen going forward. So let me kick off things with Mr. Sushil Kumar, colleague from the railways. And I'm going to go down memory lane, Sushil, and I think Jaideep ji will also remember in our probation days of the railways, we'd often visit Lucknow, the hub of railway standards and design, RDSO. And those days, Lucknow used to have only those, I can only refer to them as monstrosities, big black Vikrams, which, we used to use to go to Hazratganj and so forth. And those were really, high polluting, inefficient, diesel-powered vehicles. But Lucknow and I think a number of other UP cities have come a long way since then. I think it started with the CNG autos and CNG vehicles, electric vehicles, buses, which were non-existent at that time. There was no formal bus transport system. And now, of course, a world-class metro, which is being expanded. So that transformation has really happened in the last 20 years, and it's really impressive. Now, what we'd like to hear is what are the plans for the next 20 years? And I think there is already talk of a Viksit Bharat Plan 2047. So what does the future hold for UP cities?
Thank you, Sharad ji. Good afternoon, all the seniors and the delegates. Let me first start by detailing what is the planning and how to achieve it. It is not surprising that UP alone already is having 7 cities, maximum cities in India with the state, where the metro is being run right now. Not only Lucknow, Kanpur, Agra, Noida, Greater Noida, Meerut, Ghaziabad. And there is a lot of which is being planned. But first, let us come to the ground reality. The Viksit Bharat 2047 plan, a vision document which was tabled in a state government Vidhan Sabha some time back, gives a glimpse of it. If UP is planning 1 trillion economy by 2028 and 6 trillion by 2047, the city population, which is somewhere around 42%, is expected to be increased to 62%. UP is planning to have a 10 mega city with a target aim of 3 largest livable cities in India, in UP, by 2047. A great vision document, I will say. Needless to say, to achieve it, what is the ground reality? Let us first summarize it. Lucknow alone is having more than 1 lakh three-wheelers. 70% of population is still moving with two-wheelers and four-wheelers. If I talk about only Lucknow, there are 19 square where the daily traffic in one direction is 1 to 1.5 lakhs of vehicle per day. There are 27 roads which are one direction roads. So roads are already choked. All those parameters which are monitored in CMPE is telling that already space is not there. Of course, city is required to be redeveloped. There is a much more bigger, larger vision. 100 satellite cities are being planned. So connectivity is required to those satellite cities. The redevelopment of the core of the city is required, and that is only possible if we go vertically with the metro, with TOD policies. That's one part of it. What has been done so far let me talk about the vision document. Almost 1,550 kilometers of metro network, along with 2,000 additional RRTS network, along with around 150 kilometers of even high-speed train has been mentioned in that vision document, only for UP alone. How to achieve it remains a big question. If we talk about, say for example, a 30 kilometer of metro network with a costing of presently around 10,000 crores, and 50% of it's coming from foreign FI and 50-50 is almost from state government. So the load right now per project is somewhere around 500 CR per year. First during the construction, and then if the metro is not able to pay it. The good part is that, say for example, if UP is having an annual budget of almost 8 lakh crores, so the contribution which is being asked is 500 CR out of 8 lakh CR is not that big if meticulous planning is done. That's the first part I want to emphasize. The second part is more important. And silent revolution is coming courtesy to the metro policy. Wonderful document, if we talk to rest of the people across the globe. A document which give you the way how self-sufficient metros funding can be done in future, particularly through real estate development, through TOD, and there is large number of metros who have, particularly in last 1 year or 2 years, have started getting a huge return or already started implementing real estate business. Let me give you a few examples, then picture will be more clear. When the TOD policy was implemented 2 years back in UP, it was one of the first state. On the very first year, 79 CR was earned by the state government just by TOD implementation. Last year, this increases to 340 crores. Of course, mechanism is under the process so that those amount, at least 50%, is transferred to metros. Similarly, UP is another one of the first state to have another VCF mechanism where a development nidhi has been created just March this year, where 50% of development charges will be transferred to the metro projects and RRTS projects. So a lot of things are happening so that self-sufficient is one which the metro can become a self-sufficient in that regard. So perhaps that is the only way. But the bigger challenge on Tier 2, Tier 3 city will be to integrate what is missing, and that is the last mile connectivity. Many metros have now started buying the buses also, planning for the buses also as a feeder services. Most of the metros have already done agreement or MOUs with Ola, Uber, and all those aggregators. The three-wheelers is one which is a big challenging because there are a lot of socio-political issues involved with that. And slowly, those things are also getting streamlined. So we are hopeful that if perhaps a more integration is done on those, because every state is having 5 to 6 departments, where this integration is required to be done. The transport department, local administration, DM office, traffic department. So there are so many departments which needs to be integrated, and we don't have a common organization. UMTA is not effective to that extent. So now I realize, like in UP, there are groups who are having almost daily interface with each other, courtesy to WhatsApp group. So those groups are, say for example, one group is exclusively for traffic management, square management and three-wheelers management and taxi management. A lot of new things are happening. The app-based aggregators, so many aggregators have now come up. So things are going to change in near future. I'm quite sure it will be a major change in time to come. But what has happened, before I conclude on this part, other than Lucknow, Kanpur, Agra, because you asked what is the future plan. So that vision document already says 850 kilometers only for those 7 cities where metros are already running. Out of that, 350 kilometers is for Lucknow, Kanpur, Agra. Similarly, the DPR for Jhansi, Bareilly, Prayagraj is in final stage. It's already submitted for 2 cities out of that. And for 3 more cities, CMP is in final stage before going for next stage of DPR. So yes, a long-term vision for next 22 years is definitely required, and focus will be on Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. Cost optimization has really taken place. The benchmarking cost, which was communicated by Mahua, most of the metros are able to do their project within that cost, particularly the smaller cities. Cost is almost constant, I should say. Mainly because of standardization. 3-car underground station, which used to be almost 180 meter, is now 124 meter or so. So a lot of standardization and cost optimization has gone for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sushil. And I think definitely some tremendous work is happening. And I picked up a few points from what you outlined. I think one on the transit-oriented development, and I must tell everybody that only very recently, as you mentioned, the UP government revised its TOD policy, and it has been done in a very, very constructive and a practical way that, as Sushil was mentioning, it's actually yielding dividends and revenue flows for the metro. And I think that's a big step to make these kinds of transit systems self-sustainable, financially sustainable. Also about the last mile connectivity, which I think is a key issue, and definitely your engagement of various cab aggregators, I think it's paying rich dividends. I, in fact, was looking at the web pages, and what I found very nice was that for each city, if you look at the metro map, at every station, it shows when you get off at that station, which bus will you get and where will that bus take you? And it makes it really easy for someone to switch from the metro and then use the bus services, to go for their end journey, last mile connectivity. So that's really wonderful. Let me now move to Dr. Klaus. And of course, Dr. Klaus, KFW has been working in so many cities in India, certainly the big ones, which is Mumbai and Bangalore and so forth. But I think you're also working in cities of Gujarat, particularly Surat. And Surat, of course, you are supporting the metro, but Surat has an extensive BRT system, and I think KFW gives a lot of priority to the non-motorized modes and multimodal integration. So please share your thoughts and your experience with that. Thanks. It's on, I think.
It's on. Yes. Thank you very much, Sharat, and thanks a lot to the organizers for inviting me for, let's say, a modest view from outside, from a DFI's perspective. As you said, KfW, Public German Development Bank, working on behalf of the German government. We are proudly partnering with Mahua and several metro companies. And indeed, it includes cities like Kochi, with regard to the water metro in this case, Ahmedabad, Surat, and Nagpur, apart from, indeed, larger ones like Bengaluru and Mumbai. And let's say from a German perspective, to put it into perspective, if we are talking about Surat as a, let's say, smaller city, this more or less equals our capital, Berlin, with 4.5 million inhabitants. In Berlin, we nowadays do have 155 kilometers of metro and 340 kilometers of suburban rail. So this was built over a time span of more than 100 years. And what we can observe here in the country is an impressive speed in many ways, how you implement, but at the same time, how the cities are growing. And The smaller cities of today are the big cities of tomorrow. So for Surat, it's more or less, let's say, from 4.5 million today, it will be around 9 million in Greater Surat area in 2050. So there we are already talking about quite a sizable city. My previous speaker and you and the secretary, the honorable minister, many of you talked about MMI, mobility as a service, transit-oriented development. And these are certainly the key words which we like to stress in the project we have the pleasure to support as well. And overall, I would say my assessment with regard to Surat is quite positive in many ways. As compared, I would say, to other experience, cooperation is quite advanced. The city-municipal cooperation is already playing an important role in bringing in BRT buses, and GMRC on the other side is trying to coordinate with the municipal corporation quite well. This, by the way, we support together with our colleagues from GIZ through diverse activities financed from the accompanying grant measures or from the GIZ program. And something else what we did, we agreed with GMRC that they would assign one specific person in GMRC with a sole responsibility, let's say, of being responsible for coordinating with other agencies on MMI, on last mile connectivity. And this proved to be quite useful. Of course, one person cannot solve every problem, but at least you have somebody assigned with a responsibility, somebody who takes it up within the organization. We can see nice station design, for example, at the Surat rail station, where it's very well connected to the metro. Something a bit to my surprise, if I may say, I do not necessarily observe in all other cities, and it is something so obvious, I would say, that rail and metro needs to be connected at the key stations. Let me be honest, I do see some challenges with regard to institutional coordination. This is nothing special only to India. We have the similar issues in Germany and probably all other countries. But I guess if we jointly want to succeed with regard to higher ridership, to really climate-friendly public transport and cities, there still is some way to go, I would say, with regard to institutional coordination. And I would hope that there are agencies within the city or UMTA, recently founded in Surat, for example, that can take up this challenge to really coordinate the different agencies involved. You definitely need them all.
Yeah, thank you very much, Klaus. And I think it's really good to hear that multimodal integration is happening well, and you gave the example of Surat and the Surat railway station. I think that still remains a challenge in many of the places. And I was just reflecting on our story of the RRTS, and when we were initially discussing the Sarai Kale Khan multimodal hub and the challenges of negotiating with the Indian Railways, with the ISBT to actually create a harmonious multimodal hub, and how difficult it was. So it's great that we are actually making progress on this particular aspect. I'll turn to Dr. Himani now, and Himani, I want you to be a little provocative. You've heard very good things now by our two previous speakers. Everything is hunky-dory. Everything is moving very well in the country, but we all know that that's not really the case. And particularly for Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, the small and medium cities, many challenges remain. And I think while it's great to see some big infrastructure coming in, particularly the metros and buses, but I think a lot needs to be done in the space of non-motorized transport and other sort of paratransit vehicles. And clearly, one big difference between our Tier 2, Tier 3 cities And when we talk of big cities like Delhi, Mumbai, etc., is the lead. You know, people in small cities obviously travel for smaller distances, 3 to 5 kilometers and so forth. Whereas, you know, if you're sitting in Gurugram, people may be commuting to Delhi and maybe covering a distance of 15, 20 kilometers every day. So it's a completely different space. So how do you see this issue in terms of our smaller cities? And, you know, where are the big gaps that you've discovered? Thanks.
Thank you. Grateful for the opportunity and very, very happy to be here. So, like you rightly pointed out, when we talk about Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, we are essentially talking about, you know, a lot of towns, 4,000 towns alone in the 50,000 to 3 lakh population, right? And then in these towns, the town itself is pretty small. They are within an area of 25 square kilometer to 45 square kilometers. It's like a 5 kilometer across and the city is done. And hence, the trips are very short. When we look at the trip length frequency distribution, almost 60–70% of the trips are less than 5 kilometers, right? A lot of them, a majority of them are actually 2–3 kilometers. So a solution that we are looking at in these conditions is something which is a smaller vehicle, something which is available every 2–3 minutes. That's how the paratransit has been available in these towns. And then we are talking about an expectation, a level of service to match this, while the affordability remains pretty low, right? So the per capita incomes are lower in these towns. So to manage that affordability, to manage that level of service expectation, you are actually looking for a very small vehicle available every 2–5 minutes. And to have that kind of a frequency met, we are talking about a bigger auto, like a mega auto or like a microbus. I don't know how to define it, but you are looking for a vehicle which is 8-seater to 12, 13, 15-seater. And this is something that our upcoming study observes it to be a gap. There are different tempos and other models which used to be there. There are Magics and Maxi cabs. But then we are looking at a model which is more like a public transport, which is acting like a bus, which is easy to board and alight, where probably you don't need even a conductor. So this is something that you require, or that looks like a market gap. Our initial assessment seems to be that you require about 0.6 million such vehicles in the next 5 years if we want to clean up these 4,000 towns. And at some level, we have to grow out of that informal segments to a more formal, reliable, affordable public transport. But these small towns can be quickly turned around. A lot of people are still dependent on the walk-in cycle. So they are already compact cities. They are already, in some way you can cut across the city in a shared mode in less than 20 minutes. So these are our 20-minute towns. How do we keep them compact? How do we keep them dense? And how do we offer the walk cycle and this shared fast modes, right? And because these modes are small, we can leapfrog to clean vehicles, to electric vehicles pretty quickly. Tata e-Magic is 50,000 rupees cheaper than their ICE variant, right? So you are already looking at a cheaper model. But when you go to the next level of towns, you're already looking at a little higher trip lengths, a little more dependence on the buses, because the average trip lengths are then 6 kilometers to 10 kilometers. And that's where not these small vehicles will work. You are again looking at smaller buses or midi buses at least. And to keep a higher level of focus on them, the prerequisite is to have a very safe and accessible walk infrastructure. So if I can't reach to a bus stop, for sure I can't use a bus. And as the city grows further, like we have been talking about, that's where these modes start becoming like a feeder mode. So you still require a smaller vehicle to act as a feeder mode to the bus spines or the metro spines. So somehow there is a lot of gap, a lot of focus can happen in these smaller towns, and our upcoming study also highlights the potential of the opportunities for the OEMs to work in this area. One of the key gaps that we continue to identify is the lack of data in these small towns. So happy to push out a research on this very soon, looking at 40+ cities. And the second bigger gap that we foresee is the technical capacity and the governance capacity at the smaller towns. So somehow there has to be more regional structures where regional solutions by the big towns around, big cities around can be propelled. So these are the points that I wanted to make.
No, thanks a lot, Imani. And I think that's really very interesting. And you very rightly said that data in these small, medium cities is still limited. I think a lot of the big studies happen for our big metros. And I'm really happy that Mahua has, very kindly organized this session, which really gives a focus on these small and medium cities and the challenges that they face. So let me now turn to, well, I won't say a small, but a medium-sized city. And Nagpur, of course, is an extremely important city of Maharashtra, and I guess also politically extremely important. And we always think that, what others can only dream of happens very quickly in Nagpur for all kinds of reasons. And of course, ADB has been supporting the metro project in Nagpur. And during our visits, we've seen a tremendous amount of work happening in a lot of complementary areas. So I'd like you to please outline some of those.
A very good afternoon, everyone. Nagpur, I would like just start by just defining what Nagpur looks like. Nagpur is a typical Tier 2 city, but if you look at its strategic location, it is at the heart of our country. So we are at one point having a very extensive railway network from east to west and north to south going through. And similarly, Nagpur over the last 10 years has grown very rapidly. If we look at Nagpur city, at the outskirts of Nagpur city, we have Mihan area where we have new industries coming up. And now we are going to have a Naya Nagpur on the lines of, say, Navi Mumbai coming up. So Nagpur city has benefited, yes, maybe a little bit because of the political backing, having Chief Minister Sir from our own city, but it has benefited from having a long-term vision. When Nagpur started envisioning metro, I was, in fact, I was a probationer at that time in income tax. And I used to wonder many a times that why are we building metro for this city? Is it really required? But after joining the service and being now part of an urban administration, I realized that we need to think ahead. Because when we build such infrastructure projects, they are not for today or tomorrow, even 5 years down the line. They are there for 30, 35 years. And people slowly, once you provide them with that infrastructure, they start adapting to that infrastructure. Maybe the growth would be a little slow in the beginning, but that is what our job is, to provide infrastructure and re-engineer the thinking of minds and a common passenger to start using that public transport system. Nagpur city as a whole, when it comes to its bus transport system, we would be completely moving out of diesel vehicles now by the end of month of November. We will only be having midis and we will only be having electric vehicles. And I personally, because I'm monitoring that system, I have seen with the coming of new EV vehicles, better vehicles, my ridership has actually increased, even when the overall vehicle density in the city is increasing, indicating that if we give our passengers a better experience, a better seamless journey, they will respond to a public transport system. Coming now, Nagpur city has already prepared a comprehensive mobility plan, thinking ahead. We have divided that into 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2, and we would soon be implementing it phase-wise. The main crux of that entire plan is based on TOD, transit-oriented development. And while going through the plan and while having those discussions on transit-oriented development, in a very layman's term, I feel transit-oriented development is allowing an individual with the infrastructure setup that his mind is just augmented to take that route. So as a commuter, the minute I get out of my house, if I have a wide pedestrian straight way, if I know I can walk very easily and safely up to my next bus stop, which is at 200 to 500 meter distance, I know my ticketing procedure, digital ticketing will be available for me. So now with the young generation completely using digital ticketing, we will be going there. From there, I will get a metro, there will be a predictability, and the quality of my entire journey is seamless, smooth. That is for me and for anyone transit-oriented mobility. And for that, Nagpur has now already started on re-engineering its pedestrian pathways. We are aiming at having our high-density metro stations as commercial hubs, where we don't look at them just as a place for commuting and changing my stations, but as a lively atmosphere so that people respond and come back to it irrespective. So in that sense, I would say that Nagpur is trying to be ready beforehand so that we can deal with the augmented population growth and the overall industrial growth that we will be dealing with in the coming time. Along with this, yes, having infrastructural development is important. We would have to have designated auto rickshaw stands, designated e-rickshaw stands. In fact, if we look at the data for Nagpur, auto rickshaws have declined and e-rickshaws have improved, which also suggests that, people are looking at last mile connectivity rather than long distance connectivity. So that change is coming, that different change in people's perception is coming. Nagpur is trying to get itself ready, and the comprehensive mobility plan study that we undertook, and now once it comes into action, would help the city be prepared beforehand so that with the increasing population and everything, we will be able to. Just adding on to Himani's point, I would just add that yes, in smaller cities, the average trip would be say 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, but now the cities are expanding, and lot of multinational companies are redesigning and re-changing their offices to smaller tier 2, tier 3 cities. And in those scenarios, we will no longer be having an average trip of 1 to 2 kilometer. The average daily trip would come around to 5, 6, 7 kilometers, and everyone, there is a lot of value attached to time now. So everyone wants to save time. In fact, I would say the coming generations are very sensitive to the carbon footprint also that they are having when we interact with them. So keeping that in mind, if we provide everyone with a seamless transport system, there is no reason why there will not be an adoption towards it.
Thanks a lot. And I think very good points about transit-oriented development and the initiatives that are being taken. I think, truly speaking, the real opportunities for TOD really lies in the small and medium cities. I mean, we talk of TOD in the context of Delhi, Bangalore, etc. But quite frankly, I always feel that we are actually doing development-oriented transit in these big cities. We already have such massive and dense development that, we are kind of retrofitting the transit system on what is a very dense landscape. And I'm sure these cities, including Delhi Metro, have really struggled with land acquisition and urban redevelopment. But the real opportunity, I think, lies in cities like Nagpur. And as you really expand the network, you can do the urban development, which you are doing in parallel with the transit development. Let me turn to Mr. Chaitanya, and we'll talk a bit about Bhopal and Indore. Now, Bhopal and Indore have been in the news recently. One, of course, that they are dismantling the BRT system. And I think we have a lot of champions of BRT. I can see Mr. Swami in the audience. And we'd really like to understand, what are the pressures that is compelling MP to actually, change and dismantle this system. And also in general, I think it's all very well to say that, we want to do this and that in small and medium cities. But I think it's far more challenging to do anything innovative and big in these small and medium cities. I remember from my days of the railways that, everybody wanted to get posted to Delhi or Mumbai and so on. And there were very few takers for going to maybe perhaps Bhopal or Indore. So just one example of, it must be a real challenge to get the right kind of talent alone to build these kinds of systems. So please share your thoughts.
Yes, you have rightly pointed out, the cream or the so-called skilled team actually wants to be in the best of the cities. So this was the first challenge that we faced. It's not just skilled manpower as such. Skilled labor also is not available in the Tier 2 cities or Tier 3 cities. So getting them to one place and getting or extracting the work from them itself is a big challenge for any of these small cities. Then the most important thing connected with the metro is it's not just a mode of transport as such. For the Tier 2 or Tier 1 cities, it's also it adds the aspirational value. And if people do not get that mode of transport completed or achieve that aspirational value, then a lot of negativity actually gets surrounded in the project itself. It's not just the agencies directly involved in the execution of the project, but also all the stakeholders actually are affected by the negativity there. So that's the challenge that most of the Tier 2 cities usually face, and it's the challenge that is faced even by Indore or Bhopal metros. As you have pointed out, the challenges mostly of metros are almost the same when it comes to land acquisition and others. But when it comes to funding pattern and others, the challenges actually of the Tier 2 cities only increase. Because the kind of fundraising ability that Tier 1 cities or maybe the bigger cities have, the Tier 2 cities are yet to achieve those kinds of issues. So the project implementation challenges of Tier 2 cities are definitely more, and then meeting the expectations of the people and also the stakeholders. All the stakeholders involved is again a big challenge to actually continuously have. So we need to actually understand that any project, if it is not able to achieve its final aspirational value, is bound to be a failure in any kind, especially in Tier 2 or Tier 3 cities. And if we don't accept that and move ahead, well ahead of ourselves and try to actually implement those kinds of projects, then I think we are looking at some kind of failures everywhere. So we have to be a bit careful about it, see what are the best possible solutions for transportation, and then implement those so that the long-term sustainability is actually achieved in the Tier 2 cities.
No, thank you, sir. And very well pointed out that the challenges are tremendous. And I think it's very commendable that these cities are really trying to find the most appropriate solutions. And I think one city that has really found very innovative solutions is our city of Kochi. And I've heard Mr. Behra many a times, and how well Kochi has actually integrated and developed not just the metro system, but also a water metro. And both these systems are seamlessly integrated through very good multimodal integration. So I'd request Mr. Behra to talk a bit about that.
It's very difficult to actually speak in a session after the lunch, and if that is a good lunch. And if I go by what Steve Jobs said some time back, stay hungry, stay foolish, I add, stay hungry, stay foolish, and then innovation will come. If you are hungry, then innovation will come. Anyway, that is our lighter side. So I just take this opportunity to tell, because the ADB is here and the KFW is here. The water metro Kochi was conceived by the ADB in 2007. That actually, they gave a report in 2007 saying that an integrated water transport system can be put in Kochi. That actually got changed, or a lot of changes took place, and we went into this metro mode and did all kind of innovations there. And I must thank Klaus, because they are the funders, and they have added value to us, and we are suggesting at every stage how better things can be done. Look, what happens is that in Cochin, what you can travel in water metro as well as in metro by the same ticket. And we have the card also, Kochi One card, in which you can go not only in these two, modes of transport, but also in the feeder buses. The feeder buses are run by us. We have not outsourced it to anybody. So the KMRL runs the buses, electric buses, and we also run the electric auto rickshaws and the cycles. So all these things put together, we have digitally integrated everything. So what has happened in Kochi is that it is the demand of the people rather than my innovation, you can say. It is people demanded that every kind of digital integration to be done. So any a person can buy a ticket by any mode, whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's ONDC or whatever. So all the kind of things have been put together. And what they have done, Added to that, we actually used very innovatively the NMT. The NMT fund was actually lying unutilized. So then we thought of that, we should plan it in such a way so physical integration can also take place. So we made in a small city like Cochin having 30 lakh population, it's a small city, we have built around 53 kilometers of footpath and very beautiful footpaths with beautiful lightings, etc. So then people can actually walk to the metro station or to the water metro station. And this is, what happens is that the best part is that you don't have to stand in a queue to buy a ticket. That is the actually thing what anybody can download and just actually show it in the AFC gates and do. Whether it is a bus also, you can do that particular thing. That is the best part we have done. Of course, I just a little distraction. I say that when you Googled, I also Googled to find out what is happening in Tier 2 and Tier 3. The funniest thing is that Tier 2 and Tier 3, I will request Mr. Jaideep and Yogesh here, change the narrative. So many things are happening in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, and all the narratives in the Google are negative. They are as if nothing is happening there. So we should actually probably give that particular thing, some good things have to be uploaded. This is what I thought I must say. What the negative narratives can be made this, as the Honorable Minister said, so many things have been done. It is not only in Cochin, it is in Nagpur and various places. Now what has happened, in the Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, now we are doing 19 such locations in India, the feasibility studies to replicate water metro. And which starts from Srinagar, Ajodhya, Prayagraj, Varanasi, and except only, you can say, the bigger cities, there are only two, Mumbai and Kolkata. And of course, Ahmedabad, you can say, Ahmedabad also is there. Surat is also there. So, and Mumbai, we are writing the DPR. So they are very serious that this should be implemented as quickly as possible. And what it does, it actually does very simple. It is much cheaper than putting a metro rail. 75 kilometers of actually elevated metro will cost you how much? Actually around 14,000 crores. But 75 kilometers of water metro is costing me only 1,600 crores. So this is how, and you can easily reach one place to the other very quickly. And say, for example, those people who have gone to the beautiful city of Kochi, they can know that from Ernakulam, which is the main area, to go to Fort Kochi is the most beautiful area where everybody goes there. If you go by car, it takes more than 1 hour. But you go by the water metro, it takes 19 minutes. So this, and it is only at 40 rupees the cost, and you have all the luxuries of that beautiful boat. And that is what it is. So what is that planning in the integration should be two, both physical as well as digital. That we have to plan it out, and it is very easy. The technology is available. Only thing is that how you have to be done and why other people have to be done. I actually put into this. Say like the paratransits, like auto rickshaws. And I was telling Krishna that in Bhopal, and we were talking to each other on various aspects. So all these small things, NMT, etc., should be initially conceived, planned, and executed along with the metro project, which we are doing for the phase 2 now in Cochin.
So thanks a lot, sir. And I think just on your point about changing the narrative, I think they've taken the first step of changing the narrative by having this session. And everybody is hearing all the wonderful things that are happening in our small and medium cities. But thanks a lot for really explaining the real benefits of the water metro, and we can certainly hope that more cities where it's possible come forward and replicate this system. I will have, I think, another round of questions, perhaps with very brief sort of responses. Let me turn to Sushil. I think, Sushil, it's one of the things that we've not really covered is that for small and medium cities, although on the medium cities, we are still going ahead with building our metros. perhaps with smaller train lengths. But is there any thinking, and I think perhaps this question, of course, should be for Mahua, but, is there any thinking in the states in conjunction with Mahua as to what could be an optimum solution for the smaller cities? I know that there was talk of Metro Neo and perhaps an LRT system at some point, but I think that didn't really take off. But what is the current thinking? What can be really an ideal technology for our smaller cities?
Thank you, Sharadji. I think it's more of a question of mindset, because right now the only criteria is population-based criteria. And of course, with the limitation that census limitation, as well as metro city definition by Planning Commission with a population of 40 lakhs and more, only 7 cities. So, interesting case is when Eastern Europe and Western Europe was merged during old days of 2008 EU time, a lot of deliberation was done for those things, particularly to make development in eastern part of the Europe. One of the criteria which we noted was what is the average speed at different nodes in the roads. And it was found that many of the cities in Europe, wherever the city average speed is between 12 to 15, needs a mass transit network. Let me not go into whether it is metro or non-metro, BRT or what, but a mass transport system is required. It is more important to understand it from the data perspective. The very recent CMP, which is almost at the final stage of publication, for Lucknow, say for example, out of total network of around 2,500 kilometers of all kind of roads, the major trunk route is somewhere around 350. So average speed of roads having a speed more than 20 and between 25, out of those 350 is around 57%. Very huge number. Not a big surprise. The big surprise is that out of those 250 kilometers, almost 252 precisely, the average speed between 12 to 15 kmph is 37%, almost one third. It means a lot of things are required to be done. Otherwise, roads are already choked. So one criteria can be this, because many of the European countries during master planning is monitoring it, which is not there when we are monitoring it in our CMP. That is one criteria which was noted. Many of the research paper which was published while giving the recommendation for developing the criteria was also focusing on second parameter, which was the average distance between two nodes, either for a bus station or a metro station, which is around 1.5 to 2 kilometers. So that can be another criteria. The third point is also very important. It is with regard to the nodes, load centers. Not only the MMI is important, because we are talking about the stations, airport and so on, because they are the nodes. But we realize that a passport office, a LIC building, they are also equally big load center. The daily commutation for an airport office in Lucknow is higher than the airport. And when the city is already planning for a 100 satellite city, and the recent policy of land pooling has resulted a huge, discovered, the UP government has discovered that there is a lot of surplus land within the city. It was not with ULB, it was not with authorities, it was with some other department, maybe irrigation department, maybe fishery department, lying unkept. So when it has been pooled in last 2 to 3 months, there are large number of housing schemes which has been popped up. Of course, when the earlier question which you have says how we can finance, if part of it is given to metros, metro financing will definitely improve a lot. Like UP, like Lucknow already has been given 82 acre, 162 is under planning for Kanpur, almost similar for Agra. So these nodes point can be the third criteria also, come back to the original points. I can only request, because this is a brainstorming session, these kind of workshops. So maybe there is a need to review guideline for preparation of CMP also in the country, because these kind of things are not being monitored. Node-wise details from different perspective needs to be more. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot. I think very useful insights on how we can actually plan better these kinds of systems. Klaus, let me turn to you, and very quickly, I think you gave some examples of Germany in your first response, and of course you were very complimentary of the way the Indian systems are developing. But if you were to take a step back and perhaps you live in Frankfurt, you work in India, what are the couple of things, if you were to point out, that we are missing or not paying sufficient attention to, that you see happening in Europe, which is a great example of sustainable mobility, that we should be also start looking at much more carefully?
Thank you. Thank you, Sharat. I tried to do this with 3 points. When I reviewed our experience in KfW with public transport projects, 3 points came to my mind that might be relevant for India as well. First is economic sustainability. Of course, we all know public transport systems always need subsidies. What we did observe in some of our older projects in other countries, some countries were, let's say, less able to make sure that the subsidies will flow, and some countries were less able to make sure that particularly the municipalities will not be on their own with the high investment costs. So one project, for example, the municipality technically went bankrupt. So these are, to my understanding, points that you, and I can only commend the government of India for that, seem to be able to handle very well. The question is, of course, how long can you sustain this? How safe are the subsidies you need to pay? And you mentioned the point in your previous remarks. Second point, and this is related to economic sustainability, how to increase ridership. And this, I think, is particularly important for Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, because what we do observe is, particularly at the beginning, ridership is low. Frequently it's low. And we observed something similar in Nagpur, for example. And this is a worldwide phenomenon, I would say. So on the one hand, you can say we need patience. We can see in Delhi and other cities, they will be crowded at some point in time. But I would say patience is good, but it won't always help. So MMI and accessibility is absolutely key. And you cannot rely, particularly in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, that somehow people will come to the metro and use it. So I was found it interesting to read one survey in Nagpur again, where 71% of the metro users used NMT, non-motorized transport, to access the metro. And if I may say so, sometimes I have the feeling people like us sitting in the room, we rarely walk to our working places. So maybe we tend to forget sometimes how important it is to make sure that people can access metro stations and other mass transport systems on foot or on bicycle. And finally, another way to improve economic sustainability would obviously be to lower the investment cost as such. And this is related to your question before. My feeling is, if I have a look at other projects we are supporting in other countries, India might lose out options. My feeling is you really concentrate on metro as the mass transport system, has a couple of advantages because of this uniform approach, sometimes decreases costs, unit costs and all that. But when I see across the world, we support quite a few metro lights, and they are huge successes. Let's say Tunis, Turkey, other countries. We support a lot of BRT. In Latin America, it's pretty popular. And so I wonder, why wouldn't India try to at least experiment a bit more on diverse modes of mass transport would be my modest recommendation.
Thank you, Klaus. And I think you made a very important point that we cannot just assume that we are building it and therefore they will come. We have to kind of continue to explore ways so that it becomes more accessible and more attractive, and so we can really attract the passenger ridership that we are hoping for. So Himani, quickly turning to you, I think you made some very good points in the initial response, and you gave examples of small vehicles, higher frequency, and so many ideas. My question to you is, who is responsible for doing that? Who do we need to push? Now, you have in the room, the Joint Secretary from Mahua, you have managing directors of metro companies. So this is the time to tell us, who should really be taking the responsibility for developing some of these initiatives. It could be the private sector.
So thank you for putting that on me. It's a difficult question, but a straightforward one as well. So 2-3 things I would like to highlight. I mean, when we say tier 2 cities, we are talking about everything from 3 lakh population, 0.3 million, to 40 lakhs, 4 million, which is a very wide range, and hence generalizing some of the things will not be a great idea. So maybe metro will make sense for the towns or cities which are already million plus or going to be million plus in, let's say, next 10, 15 years, even with the faster urbanization, economic and population growth. But for the towns which are lesser than 500,000 today, or are gonna go to 6-7 lakhs in the future in next 10, 15 years, to the towns which are of less than 1 lakh population and will go to a few lakhs in the next 15 years, I don't think so metro will suffice at any level. At the end of the day, the size of the vehicle, the size of the mode is dependent on the demand at a frequency, right? So we are trying to match not only affordability, let's say you subsidize a lot of it, but you are still trying to match the size of the vehicle and the frequency to what people's expectation and affordability is. So I think we are talking about rethinking public transport. We are talking about, that's why smaller vehicles, I'm saying rethinking buses, that even a standard midi bus is not making sense in these towns for 2 reasons. One, the size of the vehicle will give me a frequency which is not needed. I can't wait 20 minutes. Plus, the vehicle will go empty, so my viability goes for a toss. So I'm talking about a tiny vehicle. Those are the towns we are talking about. A large bunch in the tier 2 and tier 3 segment. We are talking about, 6,000 plus towns out of 8,000 in India. So the majority is that bunch. So when we are rethinking vehicle size, at the same time, whatever public transport we invest in, whether it's not about metro versus buses. It's at the end of the day, whatever public transport you're planning, people will not automatically walk into it. So there goes a hand-in-hand parallel pricing and restrictive policies on the personal and private vehicles. I think that's a very established phenomena from Japan to Europe to Singapore, wherever you look, in whatever city you look, to Latin America. If you do not make it inconvenient or pricier for the personal vehicles, whether Delhi and NCR have 300 kilometers of metro and 10,000 buses and a few lakhs of auto rickshaws and Fat Sevas and cabs and everything, we will still not have the public transport modal share, right? A lot of people will continue to use personal mode. So that's the second point. And the third one is that given this large variation, I think who should do for the smaller and medium towns, I think government of India probably must think about a dedicated mission like bus scheme we had, bus funding scheme, something for the smaller and medium towns. They require small buses, they require tiny vehicles. Think about Alvar Vahini 2.0 in an electric version. Think about 70 to 150 vehicles, small vehicles will just change the whole city, right? You will jump from a dirtier, older fleet to a new electric fleet, right? And that brings the reliability, that brings the shyness, that brings the attractiveness to shift to the public transport. So I think that's a national program that we strongly suggest, a special package for the small and medium towns for clean vehicle procurement, replacing the IPT and making it formal. At the city level, I think given the smaller towns will have little technical abilities, a unit at a state level. We have established study on State Urban Transport Authority that we had done for UP. I think a centralized unit at the state level can help facilitate in the regions with the help of the larger cities. Larger cities get about 30% of their demand from the smaller towns and the people coming to the city. So they already have a regional, sense and bandwidth. That's it.
No, thanks a lot. And I think you've given us a lot to think about. And certainly, as you said, the scale of challenge is huge. We are not talking about a few cities. This is literally in thousands of cities that we need to sort of really re-engineer and think about the new kinds of mobility options. Let me quickly turn to Nagpur. And I think we discussed many of the initiatives that Nagpur is taking. And one point that I wanted to highlight, I think, from our own interaction with Mahametro, is that the Maharashtra government has taken a very interesting initiative of giving the planning authority rights to Mahametro. Mahametro, I think, has the TOD sort of development rights and more powers than a typical metro company. And I think it's on 500 meters on either side of the metro corridor. Yes. And I think that has really paid a lot of dividends, and it is really helping to facilitate TOD development. So, please speak a bit about that.
As I mentioned earlier as well, metro stations are being viewed not just as a transit or a commuting from a just purely commuting purpose. They are being developed as commercial spaces, and they have to be developed. So what now in the new mobility plan also we are proposing is a higher FSI, increasing the commercial activities around that metro station, so that the metro station, the more people who, even if suppose I am visiting a metro station, maybe not to catch the metro, maybe to just dine out, to shop, to just park my bicycle, do electric charging on my EV vehicle, that means the number of people who are visiting that station increases. It increases the livability of that station, and slowly but steadily it changes the mindset. So in smaller cities, since distance is not that big a restraining factor, time is also in some matters not that big a factor. So what will propel someone to go and use something like a metro? That has to be defined by the easy accessibility and how familiar you are getting ahead with it. So that is something that has paid off. In most of our Nagpur metro stations, if you will see, we have separate auto rickshaw stands so that last mile connectivity is there. We have EV charging stations also. We have two-wheeler parking also available, bicycle parking also available. So basically trying to make it as easy and as seamless for passengers to travel. So that is what has led to dividends for us over the last 5-6 years.
No, thank you. Thank you. That's a very important point. I think that metro stations should not be thought of just as stations. They can be ultimate destinations that people need to go to, and definitely then they'll ride the metro to go there. Turning to you, Mr. Chaitanya, I think, on Bhopal and Indore. Indore, I remember when the first plan was developed for the metro system, it had 6 corridors. Now, clearly that was not a sustainable option, and the government trimmed it down to a single corridor. But clearly then the challenge becomes of integrating that one corridor with the other modes, and to ensure that it's a comprehensive and a complete mobility system. So perhaps you could say about what's being thought about that.
The comprehensive mobility plans of both Bhopal and Indore are already ready. But the focus right now of both the metros is to complete the phase 1. As you rightly pointed out, there are some inherent delays in the project that has happened, and that actually delayed the work there. So the first focus or primary focus of the present establishment is completing the phase 1. The CMP is ready, and as you have rightly pointed out, there are about 5 corridors of Indore, and again 5 corridors of Bhopal that are identified. And they will be actually taken up in the next phases. And in the present phase, in Indore, all the major public transport areas, including the airport, are already connected. And major junction points are also connected, which actually helps people to reach their destination easily again. Indore has a well-developed public transport, which is taken taken care by AICTSL there. The bus transport is being taken care there. And even though the BRTS corridor is not there or will not be there anymore, but the bus transport network will be there, and there is end-to-end transport network that is still available there. Same is the case with Bhopal. The BCLL is trying to expand its footprint, and the number of buses of BCLL are being actually increased with the Transport Corporation being in place now. So that is also being planned, and Indore Metro and Bhopal Metro are in continuous coordination with all the public transport agencies, including the non-motorized transport, which is usually taken care by the smart city in both the cities, and also the e-rickshaw and other associations, which can provide end-to-end transport in both Bhopal and Indore.
Thank you. Mr. Behra, very quickly turning to you, I think you already touched upon non-motorized transport a bit in your first response, but we hear there's a very good master plan that has been developed for Kochi. Where do things stand? Is that, is it still very challenging to implement that, or, is it progressing well? If you can share the latest on that.
Look, non-motorized transport, as I said earlier, that it should be the intrinsic part of the DPR of any metro. So that should actually take care of that, like cyber security has been added. That should be a detailed NMT kind of thing inside a, because it was lacking there, we made a plan. And that plan is not actually done solely by the metro company. We went to the smart city, we went to the city corporation and put all of them together, including the Sial, the airport, which is the first airport in the world to have only solar energy they are using. So many of the things we actually put, brought in together and planned out that this is what you are going to do. As I said, the digital part is, we did it completely, but the physical part, say, we spent money to build footpaths. Similar, the smart city also did it. But they said whichever, we had a very good coordination, and and the state government supported by issuing a GO. That actually helped us actually in accountability, etc., which it can be replicated in Madhya Pradesh also. I was telling Chaitanya that it can be easily done after they are ready. So plan is that the challenge is that sometimes some people start objecting. For example, a footpath is being made. Somebody will say, "Mere ghar ke samne nahi banana, mera gaadi nahi ja sakti hai." These kind of things actually come, and sometimes small land acquisition problem also takes place. Otherwise, the city looks beautiful, like an European city, and people can walk. Even I say that your footpath should be such so that a trolley can be dragged and you can go to the station with a trolley being dragged like that, or a pram can be taken. So that kind of things with adequate lighting, safety, security buttons, etc., it should be done. So the plan is there, and it is both for the water metro and metro together. So it is plan it, what is required, and take the civil society also into the thing, have a portal and get their suggestions and try to implement what is possible. That's what we did. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And as you said, Kochi is a beautiful city, very walkable, and it's great that you are creating more infrastructure which will make it easier for people to walk in Kochi. I think we've got a bit of time, maybe five odd minutes, so we can take one or two questions. I'm sure you have an esteemed panelists of three managing directors, KFW think tank. So any questions? We can have a quick one or two questions. Swamiji, I'm looking at you. Yes.
Thank you, and I think very timely in terms of choosing the topic, and also the discussion is very enlightening. We are talking about Tier 2 and 3 cities. Our own studies suggest that we will only achieve 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 PHPDTs as we go along after 5, 6 years, not in the beginning. should we really think of two-coach train for Indian Tier 2, Tier 3 cities? I think that's the smaller vehicle means more frequent. I think that's point number one. And number two, without public transport culture, we'll never be able to get people on board the metro. Metro also adds another 5-7 minutes of access egress time. And therefore, how do we develop public transport as a system rather than just metro? I think these are the 2 points. Thank you.
No, I think, who would like to take this? It was more of a comment rather than a, okay, Mr. Baer.
Sir, I just wanted to tell you is that you are very right that people take time 5 to 7 minutes to reach the platform. That actually, many of the things, one of the innovations were done by Nagpur, where they actually did only two floors, not 3 floors. And some of the innovations have taken place, but compared to the BRT, you can immediately get into that kind of thing is not there. It is actually a fact. But maybe that may be a kind of negative you can say. But after getting into the metro, you feel so good and you reach in time. And that kind of feeling is also there. And what I say that the sense of security, the people who get into the metro, hardly in any Indian metro there are not much of problems, I mean, which have come reported. So very because of the surveillance cameras, etc. So this is, I am not saying that BRT is not actually a great option, but at some places it can operate. You take Istanbul. Istanbul, I visited, I was actually struck by their BRT system. All kind of systems are there and they are operating very fine in a very nice way. So I say that over the period of time, maybe sometimes the Metro Neo will be there so that you can get, or the Leh tram is also now has come to like Brisbane and all. This all these improvements will take place as the chairman said, Metro Neo, etc., who says that it will not be there in next 5 years. Probably we'll have some Tier 3 cities having Metro Neo.
No, thanks a lot, sir. And I think you gave a great example of Istanbul, which I think has all the modes complementing each other, including a tram system, a metro, a funicular for the steep inclines, a ferry, and so on. So yeah, so definitely something to think about. I think I'll request our chairperson, Iwasaki-san, to please sum up and give his closing remarks.
Thank you, Sharad. And you're giving me a very difficult task after this very rich, insightful discussion. But I'll try. And I think I was right not to have spent a lot of time talking about external examples. India has a lot of good examples. I think the discussion centered around 3 considerations. One is accessibility, including security, and affordability, and sustainability of urban transport solutions. And basically, the key would be the right sizing and also probably right molding. But we should not look at one particular mode or one modality, but we should look at the whole of the system and collaboration or coordination among different authorities, entities dealing with urban transport. And as many of the panelists mentioned, actually looking at small to medium-sized cities would give us a lot of insights, because for larger cities, we could assume that they would further grow. India's urbanization is still 35–6%. So in the foreseeable future, large cities, mega cities will grow. You would need to provide probably rail-based transport systems. BRT may not be able to cope with them. But for small and medium-sized cities, we really need to think which modality to provide, and how they would be integrated with existing modes of transport and MTs, and walking. I think a lot of colleagues highlighted the importance of walkability. In any case, wherever you go, walking would be the first thing you would do to access whatever transport modes. By looking at these smaller size cities, probably we could also think about the future of public transport in rural areas, which is also a very challenging area. And many countries world over are struggling to provide good public transport modes to rural populations. And before closing, I just provide my reflection. When I started coming here in 2002-03, there weren't many cities which had good metro systems. So many states, many cities were trying to replicate what Delhi achieved by then. But I think we have come a long way from there to introduce metro systems, but in individual cities' own ways. So in a way, we are localizing. The country has localized the solution to fit the different situations of different cities. And I hope that already, you have a lot of good examples. And probably ADB can partner with many of you to present good examples from India to other parts of the world. I think we have a lot of things to learn from your experiences, both successes and failures. And ADB is ready to partner with you in this journey to further improve urban transport solutions in world over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Iwasaki-san. And I think we are going to end this bang on time. I'd like to thank everybody for being a very patient and a very, very sort of committed audience. As Behraji said, post-lunch sessions are very difficult, but I could see that everybody is in the hall and very few people are using their phones, which is always a sign that it's been a very interesting session. So I'd really like you to thank our esteemed panelists for a very, very good discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman, sir, for conducting the session. And thank you, Saras, sir, for conducting the session smoothly and keeping the discussion live. Now, I would like to request Honorable Chair of this session to kindly present the memento to our speakers. Sri Sushil, sir, MD, UPMRC Limited. Dr. Klaus Lieberg, Head of Climate Finance Mobility KFW. Dr. Himani Jain, Senior Programming Lead CEW. Mrs. Vasumana Pant, Additional Municipal Commissioner, Nagpur. Mr. X. S. Krishna Chaitanya, MD, MPMRCL. Mr. Loknath Behra, sir, Managing Director, Kochi Metro Rail Corporation Limited. Now, Mr. Dr. Saras Saxena, sir, Principal Transport Specialist, Asian Development Bank. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I would like to request Mr. Sarab Goel, sir, MD NCRTC, to kindly come up the stage and present a memento to Honorable Chair, sir. Sarab, sir.
Thank you, sir, ma'am. As we conclude, I, on behalf of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, wish to express heartfelt gratitude to all the dignitaries, speakers, and participants for sharing your valuable insight in making this session a success. Your contributions have provided us with a deeper understanding of urban mobility issues, inspiring us all to take meaningful action. Thank you all. One more important announcement, Conclave's session on sustainable mobility and TOD at the core of the city planning will be held here only at 4:30 p.m. Thank you.